access to your villa. Trespass on a witness, all of your clean all your pillar.
Ah, sí, estaba contando algún libro de autoayuda. Bueno, no es de autoayuda, entre comillas, pero bueno. El de Kiyosaki creo que se llama, el de Padre Rico, Padre Pobre. Estaba viendo una entrevista recientemente, tipo estaba acostado, no me podía dormir y me pegó muy duro, o sea, lo que dijo el chabón en la entrevista, de cómo hizo el libro, cómo escribió el libro. Me pegó fuertísimo. O sea, está en inglés la entrevista, la podemos ver, pero de última les puedo resumir qué es lo que a mí me pegó muy fuerte.
Nico, te cuento esto, ya que en tus streams de confianza me fui un tiempo porque cada que empezaba stream me tocaba hasta que acababas, y de tanta paja pues ya no funciona, me internaron unos meses, pero aquí andamos con el dinosaurio en la mano otra vez.
Hola Nova, buenas noches hermano, ¿cómo estás, querido? Siempre la misma donación, boludo. Está re quemado. Bueno, esta es la entrevista en cuestión del autor del libro Padre Rico, Padre Pobre. Le voy a dejar los subtítulos puestos y si hay algo que no se entiende lo explico, pero está bastante bien explicado. Está muy interesante, amigo. Está muy, muy interesante. O sea, de las pocas cosas que realmente me llamaron mucho la atención y me hicieron abrir los ojos, ¿me entendés? Como diciendo, ¿ah, sí?
People cringe and say, don't tell them that, Robert.
Yes. Don't tell people what you know.
Right.
Keep them poor. My father was the head of education, PhD, all that stuff. I go home and ask him, said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and says, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. I said, but you get a job to earn money. He goes, no, you're supposed to just get a job. I went, no. Isn't the purpose of a job to earn money? He goes, you're correct. I said, so why don't I just learn about money? I can skip the job part, you know? And he got flustered and he said, if you want to learn about money, why don't you ask your best friend's father about money? And I said, why? That's Mike. So I asked him. He says, because Mike's father is an entrepreneur. And I said, what are you? He says, I'm an employee. I'm a government employee. And I went, oh, what's the difference? He says, the difference is an entrepreneur must know about money. Or then they're no longer entrepreneurs. And he says an employee doesn't have to know anything about money because the government will take care of them, the company will take care of them. So I'm all confused. But I took my dad's advice and I trundled over to Mike's father's office and knocked on his door and I said, hey, I'm here, 9 years old. Teach me about money. He says, beat it, kid, you know. But that's where the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad started. And finally, through persistence, my rich dad started teaching me about money on one condition. And that condition was he would never pay me. He says, the moment I pay you, you think like an employee. He says, that's the trap.
Eso me hizo abrir los ojos, amigo. No, bestial.
Entrepreneurs work for free. And now I'm 9 years old, my head's going cracking in half. He says, you never want a paycheck. You understand that, kid? I said, okay, I got it. And he says, well, how do I make money? He says, that's what entrepreneurs figure out. It's like, so how do I learn about money? So he would just break out a Monopoly game board. So I would work for free. I'd pick up cigarette butts and he had hotels and restaurants and I would clean and do menial tasks. And as I got older, I started getting into office work and marketing and accounting. And I was an apprentice basically, but I always worked for free. And he would teach me about money. But the way he taught me about money was playing Monopoly. And finally one day I got upset. I said, well, when are you going to teach me about money? He says, what do you think we're doing? We're playing Monopoly. He goes, no. What do you think we're doing? We're playing Monopoly. He says, what do you think we're doing? So I don't know. I'm teaching you about money. And then that's when, you have one greenhouse. He says, there's many formulas for great success in money. There's thousands of them, but one of the best ones found on the game of Monopoly. It still is today. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. I said, what? He says, one of the greatest ways to acquire great wealth is playing Monopoly in real life. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Well, is that all there is? He goes, that's it. And he says, what do you think I'm doing? And I went, I don't know. So then he took me out and he showed me his greenhouses. And 10 years later, when I was 19, I was now in school in New York, and I come back to Hawaii, and Rich Dad had bought the biggest piece of land smack dab in the middle of Waikiki Beach. And when you go to Waikiki Beach today, you'll see the Hyatt Regency Hotel. That was his hotel.
Just like the game of Monopoly.
Just like the game of Monopoly.
Acquired assets and they became bigger assets.
He just kept what's called an assemblage, because that property wasn't that big at the time, so he had to buy out all the small guys. Because Waikiki was a little dirt water little town. So he'd buy out this shop owner and buy that shop owner. And it took him a while, but he finally assembled this large piece of property. And then he and Hyatt put up this giant hotel.
You know,
It just sold for $800 million. So that's how I learned about money. I've had financial crashes. I've had people stab me in the back, but they're all good because I grow from it. That's spirituality.
Right.
You know, people who are afraid of making mistakes, like they teach in school, they don't ever grow. Because spirituality is there's good and there's bad, there's right and there's wrong, there's up and there's down. Most people only want to be right, they only want to be positive. Well, you can't have that. That's not reality. Well, I wasn't poor by most people's standards, but I came from a family with a poor attitude, if you know what I mean. Because rich, poor, middle class, poverty starts with a fundamental attitude. Poverty is passed on. It's taught in your families. And middle class is taught in families. And so the people right now who are sitting at home, who are struggling financially or worried about money or unhappy, they may be making a lot of money, but unhappy with what they're doing, it was probably taught to you. You know, your superego was taught, get a job, work hard, or you'll never be rich, or the rich are evil, or whatever. The school system will never teach you about money. The school system was designed to teach you to be an employee, which is important, or a doctor or a lawyer, a specialist, but never about money. And what most people lack is real business knowledge, like accounting, you know, like debt, like taxes. You gotta know that stuff, but they don't teach it in school to anybody. So, and then when people ask me, how did your rich dad learn this when your poor dad, a PhD, didn't? And the answer is very simply, my rich dad, who's my best friend's father, his father died when he was 13. So rich dad had this family business at 13 to run. So he had to drop out of school, which was his blessing. You know, there's blessings, and you know, sometimes a blessing doesn't look like a blessing, but it turned out to be a blessing.
O sea, es excelente lo que dice el chabón en esta pequeña entrevista. Realmente pongo una pequeña pausa. ¿Qué estamos viendo? Estamos viendo una entrevista al autor del libro Padre Rico, Padre Pobre. Lo que te está diciendo es que él habló con su propio viejo, que era el jefe del Ministerio de Educación en Hawái, creo que si no entendí mal, y le preguntó, che, ¿qué onda? ¿Por qué no me enseñás sobre la guita? Porque eso no se puede enseñar en el colegio. Anda a preguntarle al papá de tu amigo que él tiene mucha plata. Entonces el papá del amigo que tenía mucha plata le hizo jugar Monopoly y le enseñó cómo es el tema de hacer guita, cómo ser un emprendedor. En el momento en el que yo te pague un sueldo, vos vas a pensar como un empleado y no como una persona que emprende. El empleado se puede refugiar en que la compañía lo va a cuidar, en que siempre va a tener el sueldo. Lo está todo resumiendo muy pequeñamente, o sea, de forma muy escueta, pero obviamente porque una entrevista es cortita. Pero es muy interesante lo que cuenta también, cómo explica que él nació de una familia normal, acomodada, digamos clase media baja. Nunca le faltó nada, pero nunca tampoco tuvo ningún lujo. Y cómo uno se acostumbra, digamos, a que le digan una cosa, le enseñen una cosa y nace y termina generándose como ser humano, formándose como ser humano de la pobreza. O sea, en el sentido de que no, bueno, vos naciste pobre, te vas a morir pobre porque tu papá era pobre y bla, 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 y bla, bla, bla. Como que eso se transmite de generación en generación. Es excelente, chabones, es buenísimo.
And then his teachers became his bookkeeper, his accountant, his attorney, his banker, his real estate agents. So he has what I call real teachers, not these fake teachers in school. You see, most teachers in school, they're out of ethics. They teach subjects they themselves don't practice. I asked the teacher, I said, I'm in my 3rd year of calculus now. It was called strength of materials. I said, am I ever going to use this stuff? He goes, no. Said, why do you teach it?
Otra de las cosas que yo también cuando era pendejo me preguntaba, che, ¿y por qué? Y yo preguntándole a mi viejo, ¿y por qué no nos enseñan cómo hacer un cheque? ¿Por qué no nos enseñan cómo pagar impuestos? ¿Cómo tributar? ¿Cómo ser un ser funcional de la sociedad? ¿Y por qué me estás enseñando sobre el gen recesivo y dominante del espectro de la poronga, boludo?
How does I get paid? I said, do you ever use it? He goes, no. And that's why, you have to, in life, one of the things I suggest to people, you got to find a real teacher versus a fake teacher. And a fake teacher is somebody who doesn't do what they teach. And a real teacher is doing what they teach every day. So my accountants, my attorneys, they're in it every single day. That's how I learn, because every day I'm solving problems in my business. So I have accountants and attorneys and bankers and all these people on speed dial because I'm solving problems with my team.
I see you giving this knowledge out, and
Yeah.
do the rich people cringe and say, don't tell them that, Rob?
Yes. Don't tell people what you know.
Pero, Master,
But, unfortunately, the poor, as was in the Bible, I'm not real religious, the poor will always
hola Nick, no se me para la puta pija que hago. Presta atención a esta charla, así ganas plata y no importa si no se te para.
be amongst us, because it starts up here.
Right, it's that fear mentality.
It's in their words, and the words become flesh. Again, I'm not really religious. I flunked out of Sunday school also. But when they say I can't afford it or I can't do that, they go down. They become what they say. My PhD dad, he says, what do you think I am, made of money? I can't afford that. And my rich dad would say, that's why he's poor. Poor people say, I can't afford it, I can't do that, I don't have time. Because it's an escape.
Es
It's an
excelente.
escape. You know what I mean? It's easy to say I can't afford it.
And your rich dad used to say what instead of I can't afford it?
How can I afford it? How can I do that?
Es
What would it
excelente.
take? Or why should I do that? He says that a question opens the mind, a statement closes the mind. See, when you say I can't afford it, your mind shuts down and you become what you say. Rugby is a team sport, but so is soccer. The rules are different. And other people are golfers. They play by themselves. And so everybody's different. So my game financially is business, number one. Second is real estate. So what I say to young people is, you find your game.
La Jaysif es excelente, boludo. Es simplemente excelente. Tengo otro también muy bueno de estos, pero creo que no está subtitulado. Dame un segundo, a ver. Acá está. Este es excelente también, chabón. Es buenardo. Es buenardo este, Buenardo, boludo. O sea, a mí me toca mucho eso porque, tipo, con mi viejo, boludo, siempre... A mí nunca me faltó nada, ¿me entendés? Jamás me faltó nada. Jamás me faltó medicina, educación, comida. Jamás me faltó nada. Pero nunca tuvimos ningún lujo, ¿me entendés? En el sentido de que siempre era, no hay plata, no se puede, no hay plata, no, imposible, no, somos pobres. Entonces, lo que el chabón cuenta y lo que explica es que básicamente cuando vos estás en una posibilidad de cambio, la mentalidad directamente es lo que te retiene. La pobreza la tenés acá adentro, bien adentro de la cabeza, y es impresionante. Es impresionante y es excelente. Lamentablemente esto mucha gente no lo va a asimilar y después va a terminar quejándose una y otra vez y no van a progresar un carajo. Pero es excelente, boludo. Simplemente es excelente. Acá tenés el video.
Future.
Este está excelente también, ¿eh? Esta charla también está muy buena, boludo.
Unless you want average.
Y no te estoy diciendo que vayas a comprar el libro como un pelotudo. Lo puedes leer gratis por internet. Lo que quiero es mostrarte el mensaje que da el chabón, ¿no?
In America, married, 2.4 kids with 1.5 dogs. But I can guarantee you, you will never achieve anything greater than your highest aspiration.
¿Estás queriendo decir que el pobre es pobre solo por una cuestión de mentalidad? Lo malinterpreté. Y obviamente siempre iba a caer uno a malinterpretarlo. Mirá, lo voy a poner en palabras más sencillas. En la situación en lo que uno se puede llegar a encontrar en dificultades financieras o sin un peso, la pobreza puede llegar a transmitirse como una mentalidad y una filosofía de vida a las próximas generaciones. Que vos hoy no tengas plata no significa que vos seas pobre. Pobre es aquel que se rinde y cierra todas las puertas y oportunidades y piensa que nada nunca va a cambiar. Más claro no te lo puedo decir. Ahí está, listo. Más claro no te lo puedo poner.
If you want $1 million, you'll make $1 million, not $1.5 million. If you want 10 million, 100 million, and you'll never exceed that. If you change 1 billion lives, that's a formula to become a billionaire and change the world. Time costs lives. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. You want to know why you're all f***ed up? Just look at the bums you hang around with. I do what you don't want to do, that you know that you got to do to be where you want to be. Ted Turner just gave his 75th anniversary party on CNN a few months ago. And he has...
Podés no estar de acuerdo con este guaso, Pecas, pero hizo $50 millones él solo. No, perdón, 50.000 millones.
He makes a couple of comments and he says, number one, and I'm not suggesting this for everybody. It's how I live though. First 10 years of my starting CNN, I slept on my couch. I didn't have an apartment. Bill Gates slept in the office. Steve Jobs slept in the office. And I can go down a whole list. Now, these are super successful, mega wealthy guys. I slept in my office. Not everybody's willing to make that sacrifice. But it's not the only thing. But even if you don't sleep in your office, if you want to send your kids to a better school, if you want to be able to take care of your mother when she gets dementia, if you want to, this all takes money. My children aren't getting any of my money when I die. Not one centavo, not one penny. And 2 of my kids are cool with it. One of them's not so cool with it.
Eso también me parece perfecto, boludo. Si haces mucha guita, boludo, y vas a tener prole, vas a tener hijos, boludo, no les des un mango, chabón. Háganse la suya, forros. Tengan el hambre que yo tuve.
I'm not gonna, I think Andrew Carnegie, by the way, Andrew Carnegie, arguably the richest, most successful entrepreneur of all time, he said the best thing that you can have for a child is him to be born into poverty. And I agree. Lack of self-esteem, lack of self-worth. Now they think they have self-worth. They think because they've made a few bucks. But in actuality, and when they measure it against the other 8, 10, 12 people sitting around the table, they realize, or they start to question, hell, maybe I was just lucky. Now, all of us, when you're only a one-trick guy or gal, think, was I lucky? Now, I've done it so many times, I know I wasn't lucky. I might have been lucky the first time, but I haven't been lucky the 15, 20, 40, 50. I know that.
Okay.
But maybe I was lucky the first time. But my life changed when I was pretty much a haphazard kid, got in a lot of trouble, got arrested 4 or 5 times, thrown in jail. And this was with my dad as a cop. But then I volunteered for the draft in 1966 at the height of the Vietnam War. And I went to OCS, and that changed my life because it was the really first real high performance thing that I could measure myself against with other people. 2/3 of all Fortune 500 CEOs have one thing in common: military background.
Really?
2/3 of those 2/3 have something else: martial arts. What do you learn in martial arts, Brian? Discipline, focus. A lot of people don't believe they deserve to be there. I convince them, and we have these drills, why you belong there. A lot of people that come there, with money, that have made money, think they made it by accident.
Right.
I just had one of my superstars who's made $100 million tell me in the last week.
Lo estoy leyendo a Oops Bad Beat quejarse de que esta persona hizo su fortuna en Estados Unidos y que anda a hacer eso en Venezuela, bla, bla, bla. Si es tan fácil como vos la planteás, anda a vivir a Estados Unidos y hacela. O lo que podés hacer es dejar de estar resentido y escuchar a los que saben más que vos y prestar atención de cómo mejorar la vida.
You know, I'm not sure I'm going to have another lucky accident. And I said, you did it. I mean, you know, you tried a lot of things. I believe Thomas Edison, I wouldn't have done it 10,000 times.
Okay.
I would have hired an engineer from MIT to do it. But I mean, I've tried a lot of things. Nobody's failed at more things than I have. And the first 100 million are successes, but I could write a book about failures that'd be, I mean, because I've tried a lot of different things. Because failure is just testing. And one of the reasons I've been so successful in generating this equity and value in my kids, and I call you all kids, is because I convince them that making a mistake is okay. Your parents probably told you, you can be anything you want. But you can't. That's horse. You can't. If it's all juxtaposed. So, but what you tell them is that you can do anything you want that you have passion for. Because that eliminates most of the crap.
Eso lo que dice también es excelente. En vez de decirle a la persona, vos podés hacer lo que vos quieras, puede ser lo que vos quieras, que es una mentira. Vos podés hacer lo que a vos te guste y te apasione. Eso es excelente.
Most people don't follow their dream. You know, like they say in The Sound of Music, you can't have a dream come true unless you have a dream. Now, I still dream. I dream in Technicolor. I say my affirmations and goals every single night. It's bloody hard to be a high-performance person.
A las fachas.
Perfection equals paralysis. If you left it to engineers, no car would ever come off the assembly line. No car would ever come off the assembly line. And I've been in business with enough engineers, I can attest to that with my hand on my heart. They'd still be trying to make it better. And the internet business is very much the same. The internet kids want to test and test and test, and they want the landing page to be this. And roll it out. The great thing about the internet is your results are instantaneous. If something that I'm overseeing at a Concord level, 60,000 feet, doesn't work in 2 days, forget about it, move on. And today at our meeting, now the young kids are, we ran it 3 days, sir, and we closed it down. And they are thinking I'm gonna ask why. I said, no, that's fine, next. Because without them making mistakes and without them being allowed to make the decision, they never get any better. And 95% of the time, I know probably better than they do. We're never going to be able to know everything or have them know everything unless they make some mistakes and get comfortable with making mistakes. What gets measured gets accomplished. Without measurement, you're just fooling yourself. Before I had any money, I used to go to the Rolls-Royce dealers and sit in the cars and smell the leather, touch the leather, okay? I went to $1 million houses. And my wife and I would walk through the house and they'd say, when are your parents getting here, kids? No, we are the buyers. Practice within when you're without. Practice being successful. How many people listening to this today practice being successful today? Through affirmations, through going to the Rolls-Royce dealer, maybe Lamborghini, maybe something else. Right. In my particular case, it was Rolls-Royce. And within a year of me going to the Rolls-Royce dealer, I had a Rolls. Okay, within 19 months of me dreaming and adding it to my goals, a castle on an island, I own Guthrie Castle. 19 months.
Okay.
Go to stores you can't afford. Go hire lawyers you can't afford. Lawyers will meet with anybody. Accountants will meet with anybody. Go to the big four accountants with a business idea. The first couple meetings are for free. Jettison probably a lot of the people you'll hang around with. If you have poor public speaking skills, join Toastmasters. Do these. If you went to a good school and you're not successful, go to the alumni deals. Okay? I didn't go to a good school. I'm a perfect living example that a lot of trouble as a kid, working class background, my parents. Went to just a mediocre university that I flunked out of 3 times before I finally graduated with honors, but and had no money to begin with, $820. So it's all possible. But I devoted myself to feeling successful. I was wearing suits like this before I could afford them. Most people procrastinate because they're unsure, so just do it. But I've never had a problem just doing it. Because one of the things is you learn as a young combat infantry officer is time costs lives. We overanalyze because we're unsure. We don't overanalyze because we are not sure if it'll work or not. We're more worried about, on the emotional side, it embarrassing us.
La verdad es excelente lo que comenta el señor este. O sea, si te preguntas quién es, Daniel Steven Peña, un inmigrante mexicano que vive en Estados Unidos, loco con 75 años, magnate de los negocios, personalidad de los medios y coach empresarial mexicano-estadounidense. O sea, a ver, siempre va a saltar uno y va a decir, oh bueno, pero nació de una familia acomodada. El chabón te dijo que no, que arrancó sin un mango, que se pudo recibir siendo un estúpido en una de las escuelas más chotas, universidades más chotas en Estados Unidos, después de 3 intentos fallidos, que lo que le dio disciplina fue entrar al ejército. O sea, tipo, te mostró que tuvo una vida de mierda, te mostró que viene de México y fue a vivir a Estados Unidos, etc. O sea, te mostró una parte de su vida. Obviamente siempre es fácil buscarle la quinta pata al gato, enojarse y decir, a ver si venga a hacer eso acá, en Argentina, y enojarse, viste, ser tipo un resentido de la vida, porque a vos no te salen estas cosas y vos decís, bueno, si a mí no me sale es porque el otro hizo algo trucho, algo malo y tuvo en alguna cosa movida turbia. Siempre terminamos hablando de estos temas, viste, de la plata en general y bla bla bla, y la gente en general siempre se termina concentrando en su propia perspectiva, en su propia vida, ¿me entendés? O sea, no en decir, mira, esta persona le fue mejor, ¿cómo hizo? Abramos los ojos, prestemos atención, dejemos de ser unos ignorantes de mierda y dejemos de quejarnos como unos pelotudos, hablando desde la experiencia solamente personal, diciendo, bueno, pero a mí no me sale, porque a mí no se me da, porque... Y siempre es muy fácil echarle la culpa a los otros, boludo. Es muy fácil echarle la culpa a otro. Es muy sencillo decir que no, bueno, porque él tuvo más oportunidades. Todos tenemos oportunidades en esta vida. No es que no tenés ni una sola oportunidad. Todos tenemos oportunidades. Gente tiene más oportunidad que otra y otra gente no va a tener éxito directamente en lo absoluto, pero lo lindo de ver esto, ¿me entendés? O sea, cualquiera puede salir adelante, pero no todos van a salir adelante, porque no todos tienen esa ambición, ¿me entendés? No todos tienen esas ganas realmente de progresar. O sea, si realmente, como por ejemplo a vos te pasó, bad beat, que vos decís que en Venezuela no se puede progresar, fíjate cómo mierda haces para escapar de ahí, ¿me entendés? O sea, tipo, no te quedes con lo que vos ves, no te quedes con la mentalidad de yo soy pobre, nací pobre, me voy a morir pobre porque mi país es así y a mí me cabe y porque te enseñaron eso y te adoctrinaron de que va a estar y que siempre va a ser así, es la mentalidad de que voy a ser un fracaso el resto de mi vida, porque tipo, si tan mal está la cosa, hace lo que sea para irte afuera, ¿me entendés? O sea, no es una cuestión de que porque el que trabaja más merece más, porque no es así, eso es mentira. O sea, conozco gente que trabaja 12 horas por día y que termina muriéndose de hambre a fin de mes, y hay gente que trabaja 2 horas por semana y termina ganando millones de dólares, porque depende realmente de vos, no es tanto lo que estudies, ¿me entendés? Y no es solamente una cuestión de actitud. Reitero, no es porque, bueno, yo voy a ser millonario mañana. No, lo que el tipo cuenta es que tiene la motivación, hace el trabajo, busca las ideas, se rodea de gente inteligente y no frena por nada, ¿me entendés? O sea, ese es el tema. La mayoría de nosotros nunca vamos a llegar a ese estado de vida, simple y llanamente porque es mucho más fácil decir, bueno, ¿sabes qué? Es muy difícil, a él la tuvo fácil, que no necesariamente es así, ¿eh?